What's up, guys? Welcome to the Josh Morola's podcast. As you can see, I got a very special guest today, but before we get into the podcast, we're going to hit up our sponsors and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, I don't know if you knew this, but you can actually start solar with nothing up front, nothing down. My name's Johnny Garza. I'm with the McAllen Valley Roofing and Solar LLC. I'm the acting solar specialist here, and I'm here to make you aware of the incentives that we have. To give you an example, I had a customer come in and they wanted a roof. The roof was going to cost $12,000 to $14,000. And I offered them the choice of going solar. They said they were thinking about it, they just didn't know how to go about it. Said simply just give me your light bill and I'll go off of the usage that you've been using already in your home so I can make the system big enough to sustain your home. I also told them that I can include the roof. They wouldn't have to give me anything down. They can keep the money in the bank and I could finance it all together. Payment was literally the same or a little bit more than what they were paying for light. We have a 30-year warranty on the system and the marksmanship of the installation. So the sustainability of the system, if anything happens, for example, if we go on the roof and we damage a roof, our warranty covers that repair. So just call the number down below and Dana will answer and take care of you just like family.
All right, what's up, guys? We are back. Mayor, how do you feel?
I feel great. We're getting we're already midsummer. Kids are going to be going back to school already next month. And today I formally announced that I will be seeking re-election this year. I went with my family, my wife Dalia, my kids. We went and turned in the paperwork to be on the ballot. This is something that it's exciting, and really my motivation is the people of Edinburg, Josh. They've asked me to give them 4 more years. So this will be the last time that I run. So any of you all looking to run for mayor next go around in 4 years, hey, we're looking for new leadership to take over the city. But right now, things are progressing. They're right on schedule. They're right on track. And, Edinburg is the fastest growing city in the Rio Grande Valley, not because I'm the mayor, but because of the growth that we've experienced. The staff does an excellent job in coming up with innovative ideas. They're very, very progressive. And it's all about letting them work. And I think at the end of the day, we're making some noise in the RGV. I kind of shared this with you, earlier. The city of Edinburg is, 1 out of 5 people that move from outside of the valley choose Edinburg.
That's a ton of people.
Yes. So 20%, and that's the entire Rio Grande Valley. That's just not just Hidalgo County. So look at it like this. 22 cities in Hidalgo County, 20% of them, not only from Hidalgo County, but Cameron, Star, Willacy, choose Edinburg. So there's some buzz going on here. I don't know exactly what it is that I can pinpoint. There's probably several things I could break it down to. But at the end of the day, I'm just blessed to serve the people as the mayor of Edinburg.
That's awesome, because there's been massive growth here in Edinburg, and I've noticed it because just through social media. Social media is huge, and this is one of the conversations I was asking you earlier. Is politics is usually very antiquated, very old, very TV type of traditional stuff, but you love social media. What is it about social media?
Well, it's the quickest way to get to the constituent. It's the quickest way to get to a message. It's the quickest way to talk about a project. When people go into City Hall, most don't like it. It's red tape by design sometimes, and they don't get the answers that they want. So one of the things that I ran on was being approachable from the onset. So 4 years ago when I won, I had what's called a coffee with the mayor immediately, because the way I saw it was elected officials, they would win an election, and then you wouldn't have access to them until they were up for re-election.
Right.
So I started a coffee with the mayor once a month, and we moved around the city. We started off at City Hall. So, you had a few people show up. We said, you know what, this is not going to work. Let's go to the streets. Let's take it to them. So we would go to the IHOP, the Denny's. We would go to different restaurants in Edinburg. We would end up at local restaurants.
Local places.
And people could come, and I would take the staff with me, and they would, if they had a drainage problem, there was a city engineer. If they had a sanitation problem, there was the director of the landfill.
Interesting.
If they had a problem with police or fire, both of our chiefs were on hand or their proxies. So we always were addressing people's needs. And it got to the point where we were filling up these restaurants and also creating synergy in the restaurant and being able to drive up their sales for at least that day.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear, because the city I'm from, it feels like I can't get a hold of my politicians or the elected officials. Like
Right.
it shouldn't feel that way. And the cool thing was when I messaged you, you messaged me back and I was like, yeah, I'll come on your podcast.
Absolutely.
And we met at a coffee shop.
Yes, yes.
Which is awesome.
And by the way, just think about this. You're a McAllen guy.
Yeah.
McAllen is always the big brother of Edinburg. We're bigger, we're larger. Edinburg, that's our little brother.
Yeah.
You're here, we're doing the interview in Edinburg, so that says a lot.
Yeah. I tried to get the mayor on. It didn't happen. that just says the access that you're into social media. You'll answer these questions, and I think that's really cool. Okay, so strip away the mayor title, strip away all that stuff. Who are you as a person, as a human being? That's what I'm interested in. I think the podcast allows me to explore that. It doesn't matter that you have this title. We're sitting here, we're having a conversation,
Right.
and the purpose of a podcast is to get to know who you are. So who are you?
You know, I'm a family man. I'm very, very spiritual. I think I've been spiritual by my background. I was in the Army, and I served overseas. And right away, when you're in a hot spot where there's been a war or you could possibly go to war, you become very, very spiritual. The second part of that is when I came back, I started working as a police officer with the city of Edinburg, which once again, you become very, very spiritual. You become close to God. And now in politics, well, everything we're always being looked at through a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
So once again, I'm a spiritual person. So my wife and I and the kids, we're big on making sure that we show up to church every Sunday, that we participate in our local churches. And I've been invited to a lot of the different churches here in Edinburg, and I've got to build relationships with a lot of the spiritual leaders. So, kind of like a coach, right? I have somebody that gives me advice on what I need to be eating. But I also need that spiritual leadership in my life. And I turn on, just for regular topics that I might be dealing with that are controversial with the city, I turn to my spiritual leaders. I turn to the pastors, I turn to the priests, and I ask them what their take is on something, because I value what they do.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't think we do enough of that. I think that when you're able to do that, it makes you a better person. So I would say that spiritual, family guy. I was at my kid's basketball game yesterday on a Sunday, watching the game. My wife and I will split duties. She'll take the girls and I'll take my boy. And so I'm at the basketball game, watching it like with all the other parents. And, at the end of the day, I'm only going to be mayor for a short period of time.
Right.
And I'm not going to be a career politician in the sense that I put term limits. I spoke about this, where we went to the voters and I asked them to decide, as soon as I got elected, that, I wanted term limits, 2 4-year terms. So I can't be mayor more than 8 years or a council member more than 8 years. It's the thing is, we don't want the leadership to grow stale. We want to be able to pass a torch on to the younger generation, or not necessarily younger generation, but people that are more progressive or that have better ideas. And with me, I'll serve one more term as mayor. And then I said this earlier, right about year 2, we'll be looking for new leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important for us to understand. We don't own the position or own the title,
Right.
which is great that you said, hey, let's throw the mayor out. Who is Richard Molina? So, and I think for me, doing that is going to change the course of the history of the city, because some of the other municipalities locally don't have term limits, or they have longer term limits, which might be 12 or 16 years. And to me, if you just like the president, and that's what I kind of piggybacked off of. If the president of the United States can serve 2 4-year terms, why can't a local mayor from a local municipality do the same? So that's why I'm big on that. And like I said, this will be the last time, and I know that Maybe if we continue the progress, people will be upset that I have to go. But at the end, I'll still be a part of the community. I'll still be here in Edinburg. I'm not going anywhere. And I'll still be a wealth of knowledge for the new leadership to come in and ask questions.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is I was, and we were talking off camera, I was like, I was trying to look for somebody that would say something bad about you. I asked a lot of people. Couldn't find anybody.
Yeah.
Like everybody I talked to, they're like, he's a cool guy. He's a regular dude. He likes to get stuff done. And shout out to my buddy Marcus. He was telling me one time that you were in his restaurant, and he was trying to call the city and trying to pick up his trash, and nothing ever happened. And he shot you a message, and he's like, hey, I'm having this problem here to the city. Like, happened right away. I think having access to people in your position is something that is not very often, I guess, available to regular people, which is what I love about it. And yeah, same thing with Magda over here too. Like, she was telling us, like, you're just a regular person. There's been so much growth here in Edinburg, and I think that's one of the things that has really made you stand out as a mayor. Like, you keep seeing growth here, and I don't know anywhere else, but like, I keep hearing about it on social media. That's why I love social media. I think it's such a great tool. Let me ask you this. Back when you were a police officer, kind of frame that up for me. How long were you a police officer?
I was a policeman for 11 years, and I wasn't too much into really what was happening on the political scene or with elected bodies from city government, county government, state government. I got my first taste of city politics when I was a police officer. I was assigned to work at the city council meetings, work security as a police officer. So I was the officer standing in the back of the room working security. And that's where I got the opportunity to see government in action, where I saw the mayor and the council making decisions that affected the taxpayer. You know, and to me, there was another officer with me, I'll never forget, and I turned around and told him, I said, you know what, one of these days I'm going to run for mayor. And he turned around and looked at me and said, whatever, Molina, you know, you be the mayor, you up there, yeah, right. And it's funny because I remember that day, but to me, that was my motivation. Eventually it would be on my bucket list and I would run. I never thought that I'd be sitting here and actually be the mayor. Yeah. But it was a goal that I did eventually want to serve. And at the end of the day, you know, I've been blessed that the people have asked me to serve as a council member before, and then later on as the mayor, and now I'm running one more time. And after that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll give the keys to City Hall to the next leadership coming in. And when I say this, believe me, people get excited. They're like, hey, I want to run for mayor. I want to do the same thing that Richard Molina did. And I know that this is going to touch people as we're talking here today, and they're going to say, hey, I'm up next. Because I've heard a couple people say, I want to do what you're doing. And I think that's great. And I always encourage them, get involved. Go out and volunteer on our food drives, on our toy drives. That's where it starts.
Get in the community.
And then you'll get your chance.
That's interesting. I was going to ask you a question about, what are your thoughts on defund the police?
Defund the police, you know, I think that's more on a national level. I think that we're separated, and honestly, because I'm so accessible to people. And I haven't had a citizen come up to me and say, hey, you know what, Mayor, you got to look at defunding the police. I don't think that exists here. I see the Valley as a very, very pro-law enforcement. They love our Border Patrol. Yeah. They love our customs agents.
Our veterans, everything.
They love our veterans. There's just something that really hits home here in the Valley that we haven't gotten involved in the rhetoric that's taking place in the national level. And I always go off of people's complaints. And I'd be the first one to tell you, you know what, Josh? I've gotten a lot of complaints about that. But never has anybody brought that up about defunding the police. The City of Edinburg Police Department is the highest paid police department in the entire Rio Grande Valley. And we did that so that we have a better officer retention, because the experienced officers sometimes can do a better job. And we don't want them going to take the federal jobs at customs, because they have a great recruiting system on the state and the federal level. So we try to pay them as well as we can so that they'll stay.
To keep them here.
Yes.
That's interesting. We're going to take a quick little break. We'll be right back.
Folks, there's a pandemic, there's an epidemic, and it's sweeping across the country, and the RGV is a hotspot, and it's not COVID, it's bad credit. Bad credit can rob you of a lifetime of high interest payments, tens of thousands of dollars. It can rob you from getting that dream home or that beautiful car that you've always wanted. Don't let bad credit do that to you. Give us a call, Beretta Credit Repair. The number's on the screen. Give us a call. We're right here in the RGV. You'll be glad you did.
It's a wonderful experience. It's a great collaborative environment for all of us, and it's all around a great festival.
Incredible. I really had a blast. The films were great. The filmmakers were well celebrated. But more than anything, the city of Edinburg really came out and threw down for this festival.
We had an amazing array of filmmakers that came, actors. It was an extraordinary year.
Welcome back, guys. Obviously, we have the mayor here, so I kind of want to go in a little bit deeper into your life. Go back to when you served in the Army.
Yeah, when I served in the Army, I signed up when I was 18 years old. And, that was just something that I wanted to do to kind of learn a little bit more about life.
Mm-hmm.
So
How old were you at this time?
I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So my mom was encouraging me that I needed to do it. My dad, on the other hand, was like, "Mijo, there's no need to do something like that. You need to wait. It's very, very possible you can end up in a war and you could end up dead." And, he was the one that was more overprotective about me going. And my mom, with her tough love, was the one that said, "You need to go and you need to become a man. You need to do this." So I said, "All right, Mom, just for that, I'm going." And I ended up signing up to the Army. I did 3 years. And, I got to see the world. I got to see different places. I was in Louisiana. I was in Georgia. I was in Fort Hood, Texas. I was also stationed in Bosnia, which was a war that took place between the Croatians, the Serbs, and the Croats. That was back in the mid-'90s, late '90s, about that time. And I was able to experience a whole lot over there. I'm just so grateful to live in the country that we do. And that's where you really become grateful for what we have as a nation. Yeah. When you're over there seeing war-torn countries like that, and it makes you appreciate your roots. It makes you appreciate the Rio Grande Valley. It makes you appreciative of the state of Texas. And, at the end of the day, it just makes you a better person. And once again, it makes you a lot more spiritual. You get really close to God.
No, you're right, because I love to travel, and I think that's one of the things that I love. That's where I got podcasting from, is I went upstate, I saw all this stuff, and I got into the digital world, but I do humanitarian work, and I went to a top 10 most polluted places on the planet, and it gives you perspective of how life is lived outside of the United States. Oh, yes. And it's kind of crazy, but it does open your eyes to a spirituality that there's something bigger than what we're doing here.
Yes,
and I'm assuming that's how you feel as well.
Absolutely, yes.
And the great thing I love about traveling too is the different types of people. I see now here in McAllen and Edinburg, people are a little bit more free to express their whatever thoughts are on their mind, whether it's the LGBT community or the gay community or anything. You all embrace that as a city.
Yes, we do. I mean, there's so many moving parts now. And there's so many different groups. We have a Filipino Independence Day. We have a Juneteenth. We have a Frida Fest. There's so many cultures and so many groups. And in Edinburg, we always open the door for all of them. You can't say no to one group.
Right.
Yeah, those days are over. And I guess we kind of had this discussion of people that come and they visit the Valley, what is it that I hear about the Valley? They say that people are really friendly, they're family oriented, and they're very, very welcoming. And if it's any of those groups, it all applies.
Yeah.
They're all the same, all those groups. And we do this at City Hall year after year where we welcome different groups. And at the end of the day, to me, it's about loving your neighbor. And I think that, we don't do that enough. There's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of envy. And I think we need to get away from that, because there was a pastor, he delivered a message yesterday, and it was so powerful. He said, there's people that call themselves Christians, but yet they're always mad. They always have a sour look on their face. They're always complaining about something.
Yeah.
He says, how can you have a relationship and call yourself a Christian if you're always upset or you're always pointing the finger at other people? And that's something that I take. It really hits home because, I'm talking to myself here because it's like, okay, don't complain, don't talk about other people, and just love everybody. And I think that's the way things should be. I do that no matter whether I get a call from a multi-million-dollar investor that wants to see some properties in Edinburg, or I get a call from somebody whose trash doesn't get picked up. Those calls to me are just as important to that person on the other end of the phone, and that's why we give them the same response.
That's awesome.
We act on it immediately.
Let me ask you this. What's been your hardest struggle as mayor of Edinburg?
The hardest struggle is probably the growth of the city. There's so many things coming at us every day that we need to deal with, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be lighting, whether it be paving streets, drainage. And it's kind of like we tend to one end of the city, and it's like, okay, what about our neighborhood? So we're like, okay, we're working on this. Now we're going to go into your neighborhood and fix. I think that's what it is. It's the growing pains.
Yeah.
And people see, like for drainage example is an example. There's so many subdivisions coming up that it's a good problem to have, but at the same, we want to make sure that the infrastructure is in place so that we have the right type of, sewer lines, drainage lines. And that's what we're dealing with right now, a bunch of growing pains. We're also one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Texas. And I believe we're currently number 5. That's not in the Valley.
Wow.
That's in the entire state of Texas.
Wow.
The 1 through 4, none of those cities are from the RGV. So we're the only one on that list. And it just lets you know there's subdivisions, there's businesses, there's commercial going on. I think that's been the biggest challenge and I think that's why I work so hard at a fast pace, because that's the way you need to be in order to keep this healthy growth. And good luck to whoever comes in after me, because when I give them the keys to City Hall, they better be ready to work, because I believe we've already set the standard. That they got to step up their game. And I said this earlier. It's very competitive. I always use the Friday football mentality. We need to work together, but at the end, we still want what's best for our community.
Right. Absolutely. By the way, guys, we are in the OG Marketing Podcast Studio. It's beautiful. If y'all want to do your own podcast or done for you podcast, or take the actual SD cards, take them home and edit it yourself, you could do that right here. We'll link it in the show description. But look at this. It's beautiful, right?
It's a beautiful place.
And it's right here at Society 204 right here in Edinburg, across the street.
You would think that we are in downtown Austin.
Yeah.
But we're not in downtown Austin. We're in downtown Edinburg.
It has those vibes. Do you visit Austin?
I do. I've been up there to the Capitol a couple of times trying to lobby our state reps or senators, the governor's office for funding. I've gotten a good look at Austin.
You know what's interesting? We're having a conversation about seeding the properties here in Edinburg. I don't think people really know how that type of stuff works. So like when there's like I guess Top Golf that wants to come down, how does that work? Explain it to me, because I think that was super insightful that you were talking about that.
Me as an elected official and even the staff have flown to different conferences where there are site selectors that are looking where to go next. So, for example, The one that I've gotten a bunch of phone calls on is Olive Garden. We want to see Olive Garden. McAllen has 2 Olive Gardens, and the city of Edinburg doesn't have 1. So, put them on my list. They wanted to see the steakhouse, the one we talked about earlier.
Longhorn.
The Longhorn Steakhouse. They wanted to see a Red Lobster. Those 3 are affiliated with the same company, which is called Darden, and they have a site selector that they have a booth. You go talk to them. So we talked to them. They said, let's do some research. A lot of them don't. You have to educate them as to where Edinburg is, where the Rio Grande Valley is, because a lot of them don't know. They're used to doing business up north or in the big
cities.
Markets.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of do a breakdown. So you do your sales pitch. Of course, you get all your data. You share it with them. And at the end of the day, if you're stressing too hard on trying to tell them where you're at, it's more than likely the deal's not going to get done.
Yeah.
So after all the research, they'll be like, we have 2 in McAllen. They see it as a region. They see Edinburg and McAllen and Mission and Far all as one. So they're like, well, you already have 2, so you don't need one. So at the end of the day, that's how it's worked. Speaking of Topgolf and Dave & Buster's, since I've been around on the council, we were at the bargaining table with both of those. So they come kind of talk to us, then they talk to Far, then they talk to McAllen.
Shopping around.
Yes, and the reason for not choosing Edinburg on specifically Dave & Buster's and Topgolf is they said Edinburg doesn't have the Mexican consumer. So they did data to show rooftops in Reynosa and that Frontera area. And they took that population into account. And they said those are people that spend money. And if you've ever been at La Plaza Mall, look at the license plates.
Yeah.
You know, you have a lot of
As
people
nationals.
from Mexico spending money in the RGV, specifically McAllen, because they have a bridge. And so right off the bat, we lost both of those because we didn't have the Mexican consumer and the population as close to Reynosa as they did.
Interesting.
But we were at the table
Yeah.
because people have asked me, why didn't Edinburgh get those? We were at the table on so many of those deals. People wouldn't imagine, but you know, too bad we can't do a podcast with them to
Just
let them
that.
know what it is that's happening.
Yeah. Take me back to the pandemic. Obviously, last year was one of the, I believe I heard nationally, 100,000 businesses closed down, local businesses throughout the United States. What did that look like from your perspective of the people that were going through that?
They were terrified. People were scared. We were uncertain as to what was happening next. You know, when I remember walking into Lowe's and seeing somebody with a mask on, and I said, wow, people are pretty paranoid with this thing. This was early.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, I'm signing an order that facial covers are mandatory when you walk into a business or you're at a different place in the city. It's just quickly how it started to really deteriorate quickly. And what I mean is the amount of the death toll. Yeah. We led the nation in people that were testing positive and the death rate. A lot of that really hit home here in the Rio Grande Valley. I became a lot closer with Mayor Darling, Mayor Ambrosio from Far, and Mayor Ocañas from Mission. We were constantly on the phone, trading ideas and what we could do to try to stop the spread of COVID. And our staff did an amazing job of coming together with some very, very progressive ideas. We did what was called a work-safe plan, which made every business in the city register with us to make sure that they were going to follow the rules with the washing of hands, the facial covers, the social distancing.
All the guidelines.
All the guidelines to make sure that, you know, there was the capacity obviously switched of occupancy in these places. And we became closer with the business community as well because of it. You know, and there was a small shutdown that took place, but I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And I'm not trying to alarm people, but we just have to continue to be cautious.
Yeah. I think that's one of the main things is you'll see the people that really don't care and then the other ones that are obviously arming up with facial masks and hand sanitizer. I think that's still very important. It's still a very real thing to take into account that this is still going on. So just be careful. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. And, people have been affected in different ways. There's people that have lost loved ones, so it's a very, very touchy subject to them. Yeah. And there's people, like you said, that don't care. And that's something that we have to be aware of before we blurt out an answer or before we put something nasty on Facebook about this or that or conspiracy or whatever. It hit our loved ones here. Yeah. So to me, we just have to be very, very careful what we say about it because we never know what's coming next. Who would have thought we would have a global pandemic 2 years ago?
Yep.
Where we were shut down and there was no face-to-face interaction and you were conducting city business through a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
You would have never thought in 1,000 years that could possibly happen. But like I said, that's why there's people that have reached out to me that have, you have to have empathy. Yeah. And to me, we did do a monument at City Hall in recognition for those that have passed due to COVID-19.
Wow.
And the list is in the thousands in the RGV
of
people that have died of the pandemic. And, when you're telling people that this thing is a hoax or this, it's hard for you to say something like that when your dad had passed away or your mom passed away or your brother or your sister or a loved one. So to me, we just got to be careful. We have to be cautious about where we go from here. I hope we don't end up in another lockdown, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it was a very surreal time. It felt like we were living in a movie. It was very weird. And I'm just glad to see that we're slowly starting to come back out and things are starting to get back to normal.
Certainly, it looked like the end of times.
Yeah, it definitely did. So what were you doing during the whole pandemic?
For me, I found myself and really my kids becoming familiar with Uber Eats.
Okay.
And getting food delivered to your front doorstep. I think that really had a boom in the economy. I mean, it created jobs, right? Yeah. But getting familiar with that. And one of the things I was literally, we were ordering Domino's and I was eating a whole pizza. And my boy says, Dad, you're putting on some weight there. And I said, what? Well, during the pandemic, I made it a point to start exercising. Mm-hmm. So it did something for me. I've lost 40 pounds.
Wow.
Since the pandemic. I started walking and a light jog. I'm not one of these marathon runners. I have friends that run 10 miles. I don't know how they do it. My hat's off to them. But just, being committed with the nutrition plan, changing what I was eating, exercising, and really, literally putting a stopwatch and doing 30 to 45 minutes. Not a hard run, but just walking. Mm-hmm. It does a lot for us where we don't bang up our knees. So that's what I was doing during the pandemic is I started to get familiar with some of our walking trails and some of our parks here in the city. And we started a campaign called Active Edinburg.
Okay.
Where we asked the community at the beginning of 2021 to get involved in a competition. We made these real nice shirts, Active Edinburg. And we had the whole public coming out and participating, where we had an app where we competed with other cities around the state where they would log in, something as simple as a change in their everyday lifestyle. So if you're used to taking the elevator at work and you took the stairs, you would document that and we would get points. There was a point system. If you're used to eating fried chicken and you ate grilled chicken that day, you would document it and you get points for that. If you walked, a mile, you would get points for that. So it was a real good, friendly competition that we had, not only in the city, but in the entire state. And it really kind of took off. And a lot of that had to do with the pandemic, is getting people out, getting them exercise. And one of the things that I'm very grateful for is that we never closed the parks. That's one of the things that we never shut down.
Okay.
So it always gave people the ability to go use our parks.
Yeah.
Now, some of the equipment, because of the of different reasons, like for instance, maybe a jungle gym. It might have been closed off, but the entire park was open for, walking and hiking and biking and different things like that.
Let me ask you this, because I think a lot of people struggle with this, and especially coming out of like the pandemic, depression. Have you ever gone through any type of depression before?
No, not me, but there's people that tell me all the time that they suffer from depression, or it's something that's hereditary, that their mom had it, their dad had it. So it's very prevalent.
Yeah.
20% of people in the United States suffer from some type of mental illness. So that's a big statistic.
Yeah.
So once again, you got to be very, very careful how you address people that are going through things, and everybody has a different take on it, or they have a different way of dealing with it. But I can tell you that exercising goes a long way for depression. Getting out, being active goes a long way for depression. So I think, as far as our well-being, being physically healthy sometimes translates into being mentally healthy. So I think they're all coincide with each other.
Yeah, I had never heard more about depression than this past year, and I'm reading through tons of documents, reading people's stories, listening to them on podcasts. This is like, there's a huge percentage of people that are going through it, and they're very vocal about it too.
Yeah, yes.
Which I think is what helps them get away from it too, is like sharing their story.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
But before we finish off the podcast, I know I have to ask you this question. Sure. There's a couple of questions. My buddy was telling me that there's going to be a distillery coming down to Edinburg. Any truth to that?
We're looking at one and maybe a couple. So, if I say, yeah, it's going to be this one, then I'm going to get a call from the other mayor saying, what's going on over there?
I get you. We'll leave it at that.
I was hesitant on the question.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So the last question is the controversy. You're a very controversial figure here. And like I said, I was trying to look for people that would say something bad about you. And I knew if I dig deep enough, I could probably find something, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
So the whole voter fraud, the whole thing with that, can you touch on any of that?
I would love to. I could probably do a 90-minute, podcast with you, just talking about what it is. I can't get into it because my attorneys don't want me to. We're going to have our day in court, and I look forward to being vindicated from all of these charges. But at the end of the day, look at the growth of the city.
Yeah.
People will talk on the negative because they want to divert your attention from the growth that has happened in the city. And they want to talk about, but look at him there, look at it. You could do 1,000 things right.
And that one bad thing.
And the one bad thing they accuse, that's all they want to talk about. And there's really nothing. I could bring the river walk from San Antonio into Edinburg. And at the end of the day, they said, I just don't like them. There's just something, I'm not going to vote for the guy. And at the end of the day, it's always a reason why. And I one of the things I've been able to do is study people. So 8 years ago I ran. They said, we're not going to vote for you. You don't have any background in politics. None of your family has ever served. You don't come from an influential family. I just don't see it. I win the election, and I decide to run for mayor. And people tell me, what makes you think you can be a mayor? What makes you think you could do anything good? What makes you think you could do better than the previous mayor?
Yeah.
So I'm still not going to vote for him. So then I win. So now they have another excuse. Well, I'm not going to vote for him because they were people that never voted me the first time, the second time, and they're not going to vote for me the third time.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I just keep the community going forward. I stay focused on what it is that I have to do. And at the end, the voters are going to decide whether they want to keep me or not. And I think it's great because the people decide. So at the end, we're going to see what type of job that I've done.
Right.
If they decide to keep me, I will continue at the pace that I'm on another 4 years, pass the torch to somebody. And if not, then that'll be fine too.
Yeah. Well, everybody, Mayor Molina, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much.
for having me.
Hey folks, there's a pandemic, an epidemic, and it's all across our country, and the RGV is a hot spot for it. I'm not talking about COVID, I am talking about bad credit. Don't let bad credit rob you of your dreams of a nice home, of a nice car. Don't let bad credit rob you of tens of thousands of dollars of high interest payments over your lifetime. Get it fixed. Give us a call. Beretta Credit Repair. We're right here in the RGV, 956-313-7957. Give us a call. You'll be glad you did.
What's going on, guys? So I am here at Teddy's Barbecue, and they just came out in Texas Monthly, and they got a lot of praise from Daniel Vaughn, which is a barbecue snob. So let's cut to some B-roll.